And I'd like to welcome Regina and Mark from ARRI, who will be discussing ARRI, telling us all about the ARRI color science and their cameras. Mark, Regina, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, well, thank you very much. We are going to start by briefly introducing ourselves. Regina, you want to start?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I'm Regina Kramer. I'm the head of lighting technology at ARRI R&D Lighting. And in our team, we're also concerned with color science and colorimetric algorithms. And I'm really glad and excited to have the possibility here to give you some insights to the color science of our LED-based fixtures. No, Mark.
Thank you. And my name is Mark Schipper-Mueller. I'm Senior Product Manager for Camera Systems. The senior just means I'm really, really old. There was not a raise involved in that, unfortunately. And I studied at CalArts in Los Angeles. And I was very interested in computers. I was very interested in film and video. And I was always afraid I'd never get all my three passions to come together. And then, for some reason or other, they all converged and became the Alexa. So that was very fortuitous. I don't know if you know this, but in Germany we have something called Fasching, where everybody dresses up in crazy costumes. And I actually wanted to come in costume today. I thought I'd come like this. But both my boss and my wife said that would be inappropriate. So you're seeing me in the old boring suit. No, you would have liked it. Okay. All right. We have three parts here. I'm going to be starting with reveal color science in the camera. Regina will talk about color science for LED lighting fixtures, and then I will talk about the Alexa mode in the SkyPanel X a little bit. Before I start, though, thank you very much for having us. Thank you to IMAGO. Thank you, Tim, for having us. If we could bring the house lights down, please, that would be great. And after those three parts, there will be questions and answers, and we will answer any questions on film cameras, digital cameras, or windsurfing. So, I'm serious. I actually had one question on windsurfing once in a presentation in Tokyo. That was fun. So let's start. What do we want from a camera? Presumably, you're all cinematographers. You want a camera. What do you want from the camera? There are a number of things you want in a camera, and we at ARRI, maybe erroneously, maybe not, we're very, very much obsessed with this one, with image quality. To us, that is the most important thing, because that's what you guys want to make, you guys and girls. And ladies and gentlemen, you want to make images, and that's the most important thing. And images really come from two sources. They come from the sensor, that's really important, the hardware that creates the original data, but equally important is the image processing. And I think we haven't paid enough attention to that, or it's not as much in the public's eye. Now, with the sensor, with the Alexa 35, we've done okay. The LF4 sensor and the Alexa 35 has done as well, 70 stops of dynamic range, really great color. But accompanying that, we've also worked on a new color science, which is called the reveal color science. Reveal, the marketing department gave it that name because it reveals the beauty inside the images. Let's start with what it is not. In the Alexa 35, there are some camera-specific features. For instance, the sensor, 17 stops of dynamic range, beautiful colors. Low noise. The textures, baked in. That's a feature of the camera itself, and the advanced color management, which ensures that every Alexa 35 looks like the next Alexa 35. Those are not reveal color science. What is reveal color science is everything else. So once the image comes from the sensor, gets processed with the textures, goes through the calibration stage, it goes through these steps here, and that's the reveal color science, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on in more detail. So let's say you are a famous French, two more slides. Where does the reveal color science happen? In the camera itself, at some point, ARRI RAW gets created, and then the ARRI RAW goes through the reveal color science, and out comes either ProRes recording and or viewfinder image SDI outs or frame grabs. If you choose to not record ProRes, but record ARRI RAW instead, the ARRI RAW image comes out, and then we distribute all our color science to third parties. And Resolve, Baselight, they all have our debayering engine inside and the reveal color science. And then they process the image through reveal color science, and out comes ProRes, OpenEXR, or whatever. So let's say you're on the set, you're a famous French cinematographer, and you're shooting your latest movie, and you want to know What happens? The light comes through the lens, hits the sensor. What happens next in terms of the image processing? Before I go to that, though, let me talk a little bit about theory on color spaces. And I'm sure all of you know this, so I'm just repeating this for maybe one or two people who this would be helpful for. I actually didn't know this. I'm a trained camera assistant. You know, you don't get trained on color spaces. So I did some research, and what I found is that a color space is a method of writing down colors as numbers, so we can store them, we can process them, and we can display them. Now, there are two different types of color spaces, and I call them virtual color spaces and display color spaces. Now, my color science friends always cringe because they're saying that's not what they're called. That's not the proper name. The proper name is scene referred and display referred, which confuses me. I don't know what that means, so I'm sticking with my personal nomenclature. What is a virtual color space? It's a color space that's generally relatively large, and it's great for capturing images, for storing images, and for processing images. But because it is so large, it cannot be displayed on any display technology that exists on this planet. So you have something that is virtual, but you cannot really display it. Log C4 is a virtual color space, which is why it doesn't look right when you show it on a normal Rec. 709 monitor. There also could be colors in there that the human eye can't see. If you look at this diagram here, the horseshoe here, that's the visible range of light that a human can see. And in a virtual color space, for instance, ACES, the gray triangle here, we could have a color right here. That can exist, but it doesn't mean anything because you can't see it. So that's one of the issues with virtual color spaces. Examples are the ARRI Wide Gamut 3, we've used in all our previous cameras, Wide Gamut 4, Alexa 35, or the ACES color space. Now, we do want to show the images at some point, so we need display color spaces. And they are designed around the actual capabilities of a display technology. Examples are Rec. 709. This is bizarrely based on what traditional cathode ray tube monitors could do. And we still adhere to the strange. When you go on the set the next day, you set your monitor Rec. 709, you see the colors that an old cathode ray tube could do in, I don't know, the 50s or the 60s. It's very strange. Now, in computers, they have exactly the same thing. It's called sRGB. That's the same as Rec. 709, just a different name Adobe gave it. Then we have a larger color. So here's Rec. 709. You can see it's a relatively small color space. Then we have P3, which is for digital cinema projectors. That's somewhere in between the blue and the green triangle. And then we have Rec. 2020. That is a color space designed for laser-based digital projection. Now, I call Rec. 2020 an aspirational color space because very little technology on this planet can actually show all the colors in Rec. 2020. What happens a lot of times is that people will grade in P3, and then they stick the P3 in a Rec. 2020 wrapper, and out it goes. All right, so now that we have the technology, the theory behind us, let's see what happens when you shoot an image, what happens inside the camera. The first thing that happens is the debayering. So light hits the sensor, the light gets converted into a signal, the signal gets digitized, and then at some point there's an ARRI raw image. Now, ARRI raw is a black and white image. For each pixel, you have one color. There's blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, green, red, green, red, green, red, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, and so on and so on. This is a pattern called the Bayer color filter array invented by Dr. Bayer, who worked for Kodak. Thank you again, Kodak, for providing us with such wonderful technologies. And that's what you have when you have ARRI raw. But we want to have a color image out of it. So the first thing happens is the debayering. And what that does is it converts this black and white image into a color image. And what you get is camera-native RGB image data. But this image data is in no shape that we can actually see or use. It's just this cloud point. I spent a lot of time with our graphics designer and the color scientist to kind of define what this might look like. It's not in any kind of color space. It represents the spectral sensitivity of the sensor. This is all the colors the sensor sees. Now, we have a new algorithm that does that is better than our previous algorithms. It gives you sharper images and cleaner edges, so that's a good thing. And we can do that because we have more processing power inside the Alexa 35 than we had in all our previous cameras. Now, we have this cloud, but as I said, we can't do anything with it. Now we need to put this into a color space, a tri-stimulus color space, one of those little triangles around the horseshoe, that then allows us to actually do some meaningful processing with the images. And the method that usually is being used is a matrix. That is what we've been using, that's what everybody else has been using in the past, because it's computationally inexpensive. You don't need a lot of processing power to do this with a matrix. Now, for the Alexa 35, we've come up with a new novel method of doing this, and this is one of the reasons why the colors look different and better in the Alexa 35. It will give you more accurate colors. The hue will stay where it is, even when severely over or underexposed. You will see more fine nuances in the image, better differentiation in the images, and the colors stay the same in SDR and in HDR. So this is a great advantage. And that converts the color into a color space. And this is third step here, is the new color space, ARRI Wide Gamut 4. Now, with the new sensor, we saw that we had this opportunity. We had more color information. And we thought, OK, we need to have a new color space. And traditionally, somebody will have a theory what that should be like. And then we implement it and put it in the camera. With the Alexa 35, we decided to go a different route. We decided to go experimental. So we came up with different color spaces. We took some images, put them in these color spaces, and then gave them to colorists and had them play with the images and see what would happen. Now, you would think the larger the color space, the better, the more you have to play with. But it turns out this is not so. Some of the larger color spaces were actually much more difficult to color grade. And so we iterated ourselves to a point where we came up with a new color space here, which gave us great colors and was easy and quick to grade. And this is what we call the Goldilocks color space. It is just the right size. It's a little larger than Rec 2020, which, as I said, you can't really display anyway. So we have more color, with color to spare, but we have reduced areas in the virtual color. So there are very few colors, just a little tip here of colors that we can't see. And one of the things that sometimes happens, if you have a color, you put a color here, is that some systems can't handle them, and they just set it to 0, and then you get gamut clipping, which is ugly and you really don't want. The advantages are, as I said, faster and easier grading. You get more accurate color space conversions, and it is fully enclosed and therefore compatible with the ACES color space. So once we have that, we found that the sensor has a lot more dynamic range than the previous sensors. When we found that in the lab, we did a little happy dance, a little happy engineering dance, and then we realized, oh my gosh, the log C that we used to have cannot encompass this new dynamic range. So we had to come up with a new log C, which we called log C4, because it really is kind of the 4th generation, and then retroactively we renamed the old log C to log C3. And this encodes all the brightness information in the image. So here you see the log C3 curve and a little longer log C4 to capture more of this exposure. Now, all the stuff I just talked about, the debayering, the color space, you don't really have to worry about on the set. This is something you do have to worry about on the set, or worry is the wrong word. You have to be aware of this, because medium gray happens to fall at a point that's lower in the curve, because the curve gets stretched a little more. Medium gray happens at a point that is lower, so instead of a 39% signal, you get 28%, and therefore an 18% gray chart will look darker in log C3. In log C4. And I have an example here. On the left, this is a mini LF ARRI raw image that we processed on the left with log C3 and on the right to log C4. So the log C4 image looks a little darker if you look at it. That is okay. Don't worry about it. That's the way it is supposed to be. You just have to know it. And some people who start working with Alexa 35 for the first time, they freak out. They get worried about this because they're so used to the log C3 image. Don't worry, it's okay. Once we have that, so we have all that. We have the color space, we have the log C4 image. Then we have to do a last step, because we're still in this virtual color space, ARRI Wide Gamut 4, that cannot be displayed. So we have to convert this into something that can be displayed. And that is traditionally done with something called a display render transform. And that is just a very fancy color science word for a 3D LUT that takes your image from the ARRI Wide Gamut 4 color space and makes an image out of it that you can display on a proper monitor. Rec 709, Rec 2020, Rec 2100, SDR, HDR, whatever you have. Now, for this new camera system, this new color science, we've developed new lookup tables. They take full advantage of the sensor, of the rest of the image processing to get you the best image there. It gives you improved color fidelity, and you have this, of course, in the Alexa 35. We have these display render transforms. We provide them to third parties, so you find that in Baselight, Resolve, all those third parties in our ARRI reference tool. And if you want, you can download them on the internet from our website. Now, why is this important to you? This is important because we by now have literally thousands of Alexa 35s out there in the field, and people are mostly very happy with the camera. Whenever I do hear of a problem, well, not all the time, 90% of the time when I hear of a problem, I will try to go to the set, or I'll talk to the camera person, I'll talk to the DIT, and 90% of the time, somebody was trying to use an old log C3 lookup table with the Alexa 35 footage. And so the important thing to remember is an Alexa 35 log C4 image requires Alexa 35 log C4 3D lookup tables. You cannot use the old lookup tables. And you can't convert them either. There's no automatic mechanism that can convert the old log C3 lookup tables to log C4. What you have to do, or probably not you, probably your DIT or your colorist, you have to rebuild them visually from scratch. I know that is a pain, but that's the price we're paying for the prettier images. Now, we had to do that too with the ARRI look library. The ARRI look library is included in the Alexa 35, and we rebuilt every look in the Alexa 35 look library from scratch, looking at the images from the previous log C3 look library. So this is the bit that's important for you here to remember. Now, we have these log C3, log C4 images, and then if we apply the 3D LUT, you get a very pretty, nice image. Now, this is all Alexa 35. And what happens if you shoot with Alexa 35 and then you also want to use a Mini or a Mini LF? Well, the same people who worked on the ARRI laser, who worked on the ARRI scan, which was interesting, by the way, because when we built film cameras, if you think about it, a film camera is a sewing machine. Pull the film down, hold it in place. Pull the film down, hold it in place. Pull the film down, hold it in place. It's a little repetitive, the whole thing. We didn't make the image. So come time the Alexa came rolling around, we actually had to make the image. This was huge. And I'm very thankful to my former boss, Franz Kraus, because he realized that. And he realized that at some point, as ARRI, we will have to make the image, not just a sewing machine. And so he started to build digital competency, and his projects were the ARRI laser and the ARRI scan. Those were the first projects where we got people on board that knew color science really well and that could think about the image. And those same people deconstructed film in a way in their heads, and they came up with how does an image in an ARRI laser have to look? How does it have to look in an ARRI scan? Same people worked on the D20, D21, got to put their toes in the water of digital cameras, and then those same people built the Alexa, and those same people built the Alexa Mini, Alexa LF, Mini LF, and the Alexa 35. So the images look very close. They match. You can intercut them. But wait, there's more. If you stay a little longer, you get a free set of Ginsu knives. You can actually take ARRI RAW from all our digital cameras, except the D20 and D21, and you can then pour that into Reveal Color Science. Now, what you're not going to get the 17 stops, you're not going to get textures, and you're not going to get the advanced color management. But you're going to get all these other advantages, the sharper edges through the new debayering algorithm, the more accurate colors through the new color engine. You get the larger color space, you get compatibility with Alexa 35 because you're using log C4, and the better color fidelity through the better display render transforms. So anything you've shot with previous Alexa cameras in ARRI RAW can now be made to look better through Reveal Color Science. And we have that in our ARRI reference tool. If you have some Alexa Mini LF footage in ARRI RAW, it gives you the option of processing either through the old log C3 ARRI White Gamut 3 process or through the new process. And I think the newer one actually says Reveal Color Science there by now. I told them they should do that. And that's a great thing. Now, how close does it actually look? We asked ourselves this question, and one thing I learned at ARRI is the theory only gets you so far. And then you have to go and shoot tests, as many as possible, have third parties shoot tests, and that's really when you see the truth. And this, by the way, is something I love about this industry. I could be telling you anything about the camera. The camera brings you coffee. The camera makes you happy. You know, you don't believe this, and this is good. When you have a show, you shoot a test, you use the camera that looks the best, the end. I think it grounds this industry in a sort of truth that I really, really appreciate. There's less bullshit in our industry than I think in other industries where you have a lot of marketing going on. Anyway, so we shoot a lot of tests. We love tests. We make decisions based on tests. So here we shot some mini LF ARRI RAW, and in the top row here, you see this image processed with the old color science. The middle row, this is the image processed with Reveal, so mini LF image processed with Reveal. And the bottom row here, you see the image processed with, as you see an Alexa 35 image, also processed with Reveal. Now I have to, this projector does not have the accuracy my laptop screen has, because if you look very carefully in my laptop screen, you can see a little edge here, which you cannot see on this projector here. So I would recommend it, when you have the time afterwards, come take a look at my laptop. There's a tiny little difference, but you can see that Mini LF with Reveal looks a lot closer to Alexa 35 than if you don't process it through Reveal. But we don't shoot charts, so we shoot actual images. So we did a test, and again, this projector here doesn't do this total justice. You can still see some differences. Come take a look at my laptop. You see much bigger differences there. But I want to point out a couple of things. Here we have an image, Mini LF with the original color science. And then the next image will be Mini LF with the Reveal color science. And I would like you to first take a look at this poster here. This poster here, right now, it's a little muddy. You can't really tell what's going on. With the Reveal color science, you actually see a little more detail in that poster. The second thing I'd like you to look at is the brake lights of this motorcycle here. Now, this is something that my former boss, Franz Krauss, would torture the engineers with. Anytime they came up with a new algorithm, he said, okay, stay late tonight, go outside and shoot some brake lights of cars. Let's see if you actually see color in those brake lights. That's really, really difficult. Most cameras cannot do this. This is a Mini LF with the original color science. By the way, not a bad camera, not a bad color science. But what you see here, you see some clipping in these lights, and then it also on the fringes turns a little purple. That's not what we want. So with the Reveal color science, you actually see it's a red light that gets really bright, and so you see a little orange there, and it doesn't clip. This is the kind of stuff that we get very, very excited about. The next thing I'd like to show you is, and you can't really see it very well here, but look at my laptop later on, is this reflection on the concrete. With the original color science, it kind of gums up, but then with the Reveal color science, you actually can see, I think we do see some gamut clipping here from the projector, but you see more subtle differences in the shade of the image. This, of course, also all translates into skin tones, gives you more accurate, prettier skin tones. The other image I have is this one here, Mini LF ARRI RAW with original color science. Take a look at this clock here. And admittedly, of course, we pumped a lot of purple light in here. We wanted to stress the system. There's no point just shooting a pretty picture. We wanted to stress the system. So here, original color science, Alexa 35, Reveal color science. Back, original color science, Reveal color science. You can see the difference between the red and the white here much better with the Reveal color science. Same for this person here. He's got a lot of purple light on his face, on his shirt. With Reveal, you actually see its skin tone, and here's a blue shirt with purple light on it, rather than everything just being gummed up by this purple light. And that concludes my part of the proceedings. Actually, I'm going to be back, but now I'd like to hand over to Regina for color science for LED fixtures. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for introducing the Reveal color science. And now let's make a switch to the color science of LED-based fixtures. Could you please again turn off the light? In my part, I would like to explain you the most relevant features of our LED-based fixtures regarding color quality, which are the gamut, spectral power distribution, the capability to produce different color temperatures, and here I would especially like to concentrate on very low color temperatures, some words about dimming, quality dimming technologies, and finally color rendition, especially with the Alexa 35 camera. But now let's start with the gamut of a LED fixture. What is the gamut of a fixture? The gamut of a LED fixture gives you the information how many different colors directly can be produced by the fixture when you are directly looking into the fixture or when the fixture is illuminating white or neutral gray objects. It's typically shown as such a highlighted area in the CIE 9031 chromaticity diagram, which principally contains all colors the human eye can perceive, with the white and pastel colors in the centers towards the highly saturated spectral colors on the edges. And here this highlighted area shows you the example of a 6-color light engine in the sky panel X, which directly can be produced by the fixture. And how is it determined? That's a quite easy procedure. You simply have to measure the chromaticity coordinates of the individual base colors, which independently can be controlled by the fixture. Here in this case, the chromaticity coordinates of the blue, the cyan, green, lime, amber, and red LED, and then connect these chromaticity coordinates by straight lines, and then all colors which lie inside this convex polygon directly can be produced by the fixture. And this also shows you the range of different color temperatures. Here's the Plancke locus and the daylight locus, which the fixture principally could produce, and of course all the different colors which can be used for any effects. Now, if you ask how this gamuts of a fixture are related to typical RGB color spaces, that's shown on the next slide. Mark already gave you an introduction to typical RGB color spaces. Here's a Gannon slide showing the REC 709 or sRGB, standard RGB color space. That's a highlighted one, which is a limited color space. If you compare these color spaces here to this gray dotted line, this gamut here shows you the colors of real-world object colors, which have been measured by Mr. Pointer. And then you can see that many of real-world object colors would be simply clipped by the sRGB color space, and therefore this color space wasn't regarded as sufficient for digital cinema. And then there was introduced the DCI P3 color space, here shown by the green line, which is already significantly larger. But as also this P3 color space as minimum color space for digital cinema, also this color space would clip some real-world object colors, especially here in the cyan and green area. There finally was introduced the REC 2020 color space, here shown by the red line, as color space for ultra-high definition television and Dolby Vision. And this is really a very large color space containing all real-world surface colors. They're all within this color space. And now let's compare the gamut of some typical LED fixtures, especially with this REC 2020 color space. It's shown on the next slide. On the left hand, you can see the gamut of a classic RGB white fixture as our classic Sky Panel X. This is here this highlighted gamut, and on the right hand, the significantly larger gamut of a 6-color light engine is used in the new Sky Panel X. Both fixtures could produce most of the colors of the REC 2020 color space, whereas of course a new 6-color light engine can produce more colors, especially here in the cyan range, but also what's quite important in the range of warm colors and low color temperatures. Here you have a significant improvement with 6-color light engines. Now, the gamut of a fixture is a large gamut of a fixture for sure is nice to have because it shows you all the colors which can be used for effects and the range of different color temperatures, but it doesn't tell you anything about the color quality of the fixture. Regarding color quality, we have to look at the spectral power distribution. The spectral power distribution contains the information on how the light is spectrally composed within the visible range, beginning at 380 nanometer blue up to 780 nanometer full red. And once you have measured this spectral power distribution, you can calculate the resulting chromaticity coordinates as well as the color temperature, but also the color rendition of the light, how it's capable to produce illuminated objects. Here I would like to give you an example of a 6-color light engine consisting of RGB, amber, cyan, and lime with 6 LED colors. It's possible to create super high color rendering indices, provided you have chosen the correct LEDs, or good LEDs have a good calibration and good algorithms, of course. But with exactly the same LEDs, and exactly the same fixture, it's possible to create, for example, this chromaticity coordinates and white light, 5,600 Kelvin, by different ways. If you would use only the RGB LEDs, no problem at all to create a white light with 5,600 Kelvin, but the resulting color rendering index would only be in the range of 30, which means a really poor color quality. And here in the spectral power distribution, you can see that only the blue, green, and red LED is used in this case. This is what you would get if you would operate on SkyPanel X in the direct mode by only controlling the RGB channels. If you want to have a better light quality, you have to add additional LEDs to fill the gaps here in the spectral power distribution. In case of a 4-channel fixture, you would add the white one, or in case of this 6-color light engine, we would add the amber, cyan, and lime LEDs. And by optimizing these 6 LEDs to maximum CRI, you can obtain great CRIs of up to 98, 99, which means a really excellent color rendering quality. On the other hand, it would be possible to optimize exactly the same LEDs to a maximum output by maintaining the color rendering index at least at 90. And this may be an interesting option if you need maximum punch out of your fixture and would be willing to sacrifice a couple of points in CRI. And this is what we are doing in our high output mode. Here, the light is optimized to maximum output by maintaining a minimum CRI of 90. And as there are so many different ways to create exactly the same chromaticity coordinates, the same LEDs, we now introduced a new operational mode where we optimized the color mixture to maximum or to best color rendering quality when capturing the scene with an ARRI Alexa 35 camera. And in all cases, you can see slight differences in the spectral power distribution. Here, in this case, the CRI itself goes down by a couple of points, but the color rendition with an ARRI Alexa 35 would be optimized. Well, to sum it up, it's not the XY chromaticity coordinates and the color temperature which gives you the information on the best on the color quality, but it's a spectral power distribution. And again, it depends from the choice of LEDs, calibration, and the algorithms and the spectral optimization. And for this, each ARRI fixture has an own individual spectral calibration. And the white light is either optimized to maximum CRI, that's what you get if you choose the operational mode high CRI, or to maximum output with a CRI minimum of 90 if you choose the operational mode high output, or a silent fan mode with a minimum CRI of 94 if you use a standard mode, or new with the SkyPanel X, optimized to the color rendition with ARRI Alexa cameras. And now some words to color temperatures, especially to ultra-low color temperatures. If you want to light a scene with candles or flames, candles and flames have a very warm, very low color temperature, then you need a light which is not only capable to produce the same colors, the same chromaticity coordinates of the candle and of the flames, but also has the same good color rendering quality. The color rendering of a candle, we measured one in our lighting lab some years ago, has a color rendering index of close to 100 and then correlated color temperature in this case of 1900 Kelvin. Here are the chromaticity coordinates of candles and flames. They are located here in this area. But you may have made the experience that some fixtures, especially when using classic RGB white LEDs, even if they're capable to produce these ultra-low color temperatures, don't have an excellent color rendering quality in this case. But the new Skypel X can handle these ultra-low color temperatures very well. And this is shown on the next slide. On the left hand, there's a zoom into the chromaticity chart, especially with the low color temperatures. And classic Skypel X, here with the Scammut, and the new 6-channel Skypel X, both fixtures can produce the color of candles and flames, which are located here in this range. But the high CRI range of a 4-channel fixture and our classic sky panel is starting at 2800 Kelvin here and above. But it can produce this color if you use the X-ray chromaticity mode, DMX mode, or if you use extended color control, you could create this color temperature, but the high CRI mode is optimized for higher color temperatures. The Skypel X, whereas, is starting with its high CRI range already at 1500 Kelvin up to 20,000 Kelvin. And here you can see the color rendering indices, which are really great at 2800 Kelvin with a CRI of 98, even 97 at 2000 Kelvin, and 95 at 1500 Kelvin. And so we think this fixture is a great tool to create especially these ultra low color temperatures. So what alternatives would you have for creating these ultra low color temperatures with conventional fixtures? Of course, you could use a tungsten incandescent lamp and dim it down. And as everybody knows, by dimming down a tungsten incandescent lamp, the light gets warmer, the color temperature is going down, but also the light output goes down. And this chart shows the relationship between color temperature and brightness when dimming down a classic tungsten incandescent lamp. And if I dim it down to achieve a color temperature below 2000 Kelvin, there's nearly nothing left. So you have an extremely low light output at these color temperatures, and so that's probably not a very practical method, and the reason why you probably would use a combination of a tungsten incandescent lamp with a color filter. And here, if you would use a tungsten incandescent lamp with a 1.5 CTO, you would get this spectral power distribution. You could create exactly the desired color temperature, 1900 Kelvin, with a CRI of 92, still in a very good range. But here you have a fixture, a light source, which already has a poor luminous efficacy. And then you're losing another 50% due to the transmission of the color filter, which is resulting in a low efficacy of the resulting system. And if you're then not happy with the resulting color, you would have to exchange the color filter, which means an additional expense and time. And with Skypel X, whereas you have a completely independent control of color temperature and brightness. Then some words to dimming and dimming quality. Most LED fixtures come with different dimming curves, which describe the relationship between the input dimming level and the resulting relative light output. And typical dimming curves are the linear dimming curves. The S dimming curve, the log dimming curve, and here is the exponential dimming curve. Our default dimming function is the exponential dimming curve because this dimming curve mimics the eye's logarithmic sensitivity curve, which means that for a perceived 50% brightness, the light output is only 18%, and for a perceived 1% brightness, the measured light output is only 0.05%. That's the sensitivity curve of the human eye. And this figure here shows you that an excellent low dimming behavior of a light fixture requires extremely low light level. And that's really a challenge for us fixture manufacturers because the challenges are avoid flicker, avoid color shifts, and enable a true dimming down to 0. This slide here shows you some typical dimming technologies, or the main dimming technologies. The first dimming technology is a pulse width dimming. At pulse width modulation dimming, the light, the LEDs are always on at the same current level, but they're switched on and off with a high frequency. And the on-off ratio directly determines the perceived brightness. 90% on, 10% off means 10% brightness. And this can be done with a low frequency or with a high frequency. And if the frequency is high enough, there is no flicker risk at all, neither for the eye nor for the cameras. The second main dimming technology is current dimming. And here the LEDs are always on at a certain current level, and the current level is modified and directly determines the perceived brightness. And with this current dimming, where the current is reduced, but the LEDs are always on, there is no flicker risk at all. If you now see these different dimming technologies, you may ask, oh, where isn't there always use the current dimming because we don't have any flicker risk at all? And the answer is given in the next slide, which compares the different dimming technologies. Using a pure current dimming, as already told, means it's absolutely flicker-free at all frame rates. And therefore, this dimming technology is used in our high-speed mode. This dimming technology or dimming mode is dimmable, but the low dimming behavior is somewhat limited because when you are introducing the current, you achieve a point where the electronics is running into limitations, and also the LEDs sometimes make some strange things when operating them at very low currents. Also, the spectral constancy is not as good as when using pulse width modulation, because when reducing or changing the current, that's physics, you cannot avoid it, that the dominant wavelengths, especially of the cyan and of the green LEDs, are shifting with the current. Of course, we are compensating the resulting color of the color mixture, but this behavior of the LEDs might cause slight metameric effects. But if you need an absolutely flicker-free light, then this high-speed mode is your choice. But due to these limitations, we are usually using a pulse width modulation. And as the LEDs in our fixtures are operated with a very high operation frequency of about 30 kilohertz, this is also flicker-free if you use frame rates up to 200 FPS and typical shutter angles above 170 degrees. This is also dimmable, but also here the very low dimming range is limited because also here we are running into limitations by the electronics. When operating the fixture with 30 kilohertz, you have very short pulses, you can imagine this. And when dimming down the fixture, these pulses have to become shorter and shorter and shorter. And there is a point where, the electronics is running into limitations. Spectral constancy is very fine, and that's our normal dimming method in the classic sky panel and also in the L series. But now our electronic colleagues developed a combination of pulse width modulation and current dimming is our new normal dimming technology available in the Sky-Panel X and also already in the orbiter. In principle, this new normal mode is the same pulse width modulation as our former normal mode, but at this point, at very low light levels, when we were running into limitations, we are now continuing and dimming the LEDs with a current dimming, which is resulting in a very good low-end dimming behavior. If you have the chance, please have a look at the Sky-Panel X in our booth. And now, finally, color rendition. The general principle of color rendition is that you compare a defined set of test colors which are illuminated by a reference light source, which typically is a natural daylight or a Planckian spectral power distribution, which has the same correlated color temperature and the same brightness as your fixture you want to compare. And you are illuminating the test colors with your reference light source and define the colors as perfect as they are under the reference light source. So you take this set of test colors and illuminate it by your fixture to be evaluated, and you compare color patch for color patch if there are any differences in brightness, hue, or chroma. And this comparison can either be done with the eye or with a camera. Ideally, of course, there are no color shifts at all for all test colors, and in this case, a resulting color rendering index would be, by definition, 100. And the bigger the color differences of the individual colors, the lower the resulting color rendering index. This color rendering index is no percentage, it's just a figure. It could be also negative. Especially if you take the color rendering index. And there are a lot of different color rendering indices. And the most important are shown here on the slide. It's also my last slide before I hand over to Mark. The most commonly used color rendering index is a CRI, color rendering index, defined by the CRE. And it's calculating a pure color fidelity when illuminating a set of 8 pastel colors and comparing the color differences with the human eye. Now there exists in the meantime a much more common and much more advanced color rendering index, which is the RF according to TM 2020. It uses better colorimetric algorithms and a larger test of 99 test colors, including human complexion and also highly saturated colors. Also calculating the fidelity when looking at this illuminated set with a human eye. You also may have heard about the CQS, that's the color quality scale developed by the NIST, but not yet standardized, calculating the fidelity and a kind of preference index when looking at a set of 15 test colors, also when looking at test colors with a human eye. Of course, we here are more interested in the color fidelity when evaluating the color rendition with a camera instead only with a human eye. But up to now, there only exists one color rendering index for cameras. That's a television lighting consistency index, or it's a television lighting matching function developed by the IBU. And this is fidelity index taking into account the spectral sensitivity of a typical broadcast camera and evaluating it for the 21 test colors of the Macbeth color checker. Unfortunately, the spectral sensitivity of a typical broadcast camera differs from the spectral sensitivity of a typical cine-style camera. But up to now, there doesn't exist an official index to calculate it. We at ARRI internal are using our ARRI internal ARRI Alexa 35 or also ARRI Alexa LF index and can calculate a fidelity index, taking into account the spectral sensitivity of the ARRI cameras and the complete ARRI Rubin color science for a very large set of 190 test colors. And there also exists a spectral similarity index developed by the AMPAS. This index is nice and fidelity non-preference index. It doesn't use a camera non-eye model and no defined test color set. It's describing the deviation of the spectral power distribution of your test light source compared to a reference light source and is therefore more kind of a confidence factor. But now let's concentrate on the color rendition with our Alexa cameras, and Mark will show you the results of some pictures we made with our Sky Panel X.
Thank you. Aren't you glad we do this kind of stuff and you don't have to do that? So, as I mentioned before, we love to shoot tests. And when my colleagues from lighting approached me and they said, hey, we can do this Alexa color mode in the light, I said, well, okay, how does it work? And can you actually see a difference? And what is it good for? And so I'm here to answer these questions. So here are the different modes you can set the Sky Panel X to. And in order to determine if you can actually see a difference, we, of course, set up a test, because we love to shoot tests. And we did 2 tests, one with daylight and one with tungsten. The daylight tests, we used an HMI light with a camera box in front, and we measured the light that came out of it. And it turned out to be, we set the light to 5600 Kelvin, and it turned out to be 5560, so very, very close to what we thought should come out of there. And then we shot a scene with the Sky Panel X in the high CRI mode, and then also in the ARRI Alexa mode. And we adjusted the Sky Panel X to match the color temperature of this HMI light. And the Alexa was just set to 5600 degree Kelvin, the default color balance. And here now I have the test image. You can tell we love our Milka chocolate at the ARRI lab. And so here we have the HMI. And here in comparison is the Sky Panel X in high CRI mode. Going back, HMI, high CRI, HMI, high CRI. You can see the differences. I mean, you can certainly see that, here we have different saturation of the color and a slightly different hue. Going back to HMI, high CRI. And then I'm switching to the Alexa mode of the light. HMI, Alexa mode, HMI, Alexa mode. And aside from the fact that the light is at a slightly different angle, they're actually looking a lot closer. We're going back just for fun. So here's HMI versus high CRI mode. And then here's the ARRI Alexa mode, and again the HMI. So the ARRI Alexa mode is much closer to the HMI than the high CRI mode. And here you can also see that on the bottom is the HMI of some really tricky, difficult colors. You probably know this. These are very, very tricky, different colors. And then on the left, you see the Sky Panel X in the high CRI mode, and in contrast to the ARRI Alexa mode, which is much closer to the HMI. Same with this color patch here, and then this lovely lavender. Same thing. So these are much closer to each other than these two. And then we say, okay, let's try this also for tungsten, different animal. Tungsten behaves very differently from HMI, from daylight. And we used the tungsten light, the T2, and we set it to 3100 and 2400 Kelvin, and then we measured it, and it actually turned out to be 3100 and 2400 Kelvin. And then we did exactly the same thing. And there we found something very interesting. Here's the tungsten at 3100 Kelvin, and the camera was set to 4300, so we actually would see a slightly warmer image. And then I'm comparing this with the Sky Panel X in high CRI, going back to the tungsten, back to Sky Panel X, and quite frankly, I don't see a very big difference. And then we said, okay, let's look at the Alexa mode of the Sky Panel X. Alexa mode, tungsten, Alexa mode, tungsten, not a big difference. Okay, let's go even lower in color temperature, 2400 K. Here's tungsten in comparison to Sky Panel X, high CRI, back to tungsten, back to high CRI, and then going to Alexa mode, and for comparison again, tungsten, Alexa mode, high CRI, Alexa mode, and tungsten. Not a very big difference. We then shot different people with different skin tones because that does make a difference. And I'm not going to go through all these, but they all look very much the same. Same with this gentleman here. And the same with this lady. And what we found is in conclusion that the Sky Panel X in the Alexa 35 mode is closer for daylight to an HMI light source, to the reference light source. But in tungsten, the Alexa 35 mode and the high CRI mode are very close. And then, of course, the question is, well, thank you, engineers, for giving us this, but what does it really mean? What can I shoot with this? What's the practical application? And that really is, of course, for you to figure out. Personally, I think if you have, let's say you have a studio shot, a product shot, and you're using exclusively Sky Panel X's, then you would have an advantage of using the Alexa mode in the Sky Panel X. Of course, you have to have an Alexa 35, which also, the Alexa 35 mode also works really well for all the other ARRI Alexa cameras and the Amira camera. So only using Sky Panel X's and Alexa 35, I'd highly recommend going to the Alexa 35 mode because you will get higher color fidelity. If you have mixed lighting or if you're shooting tungsten, it doesn't really make that big of a difference, and there you could use the high CRI mode. That was the result of all the tests. And I think that concludes the official presentation, and if we can bring the highlights back up, and thank you. And now we will take questions. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Hello. Argyristeos GSC from Greece. Some people who know me will say that I'm obsessed with the next question.
No, is a cinematographer obsessed with something?
Well, yes, I'm obsessed for many things, but, metamerism is one of them. So let's talk about metamerism a bit. And since you are using 6 colors to create any color, you can adjust the 6 pixels to create on different levels approximately the same color and get to the same result on various calculations. This is what you are doing when you're doing high CRI, Alexa, etc., etc., etc. Now, I know, because I also do stage lighting, that stage lighting manufacturer, ETC, uses this thing to promote different reactions of the lights. So you can have metameric results of a specific color tint on the face and make the clothing look different on option A, option B, or option C. This is not what we want in film. It's exactly the opposite. In theater, they may want it, but in film, we don't. We want everything to be constant from start to the end. So how is this being dealt? Because it gets me a bit worried, or not worried, getting curious. Curious is the better word. Since we also have to deal with dimming, and we practically sometimes need to change something. I mean, now I need more punch. Or immediately I had thought to go PW, how do you call it? But the director wants high frame rate. So I need to change. Does this affect? Certainly it does affect, but does it affect to a visible level the result?
For sure, there will be a slight difference between you choosing the high CRI mode and the high output mode. As I already explained, high CRI in our Sky Panel X, here you have a CRI of 98, 99, 98 in this range. And in the high output mode, it may go down to slightly above 90, and this will result in slight color differences. But if you are looking very close to the colors, yes, there will be a difference. And if you want to be sure that you get out the best color fidelity, then we really recommend to use the high CRI mode in mixed light combinations, or if you don't have an ARRI camera. And if you have a set consisting of an Sky Panel X And with an ARRI Alexa camera, then we recommend the Alexa mode, because these two modes give you the best color fidelity. We do not try to optimize our fixtures to maximum gamut or to any effects, but we try to optimize the light really to best color fidelity.
And that avoids the metamerism.
Yes, except if you are using the high output mode, and if you are worrying about metamerism, you shouldn't choose the high output mode.
But the stage light, what CRI does a typical stage light have for a rock and roll concert?
95 or 90.
Oh, really? They also that.
ATC models, yes, they're very expensive and very high tech.
Sure.
But suppose production brings and forces me to use a second or third or fourth camera that's not an ARRI. How things go there?
Then you would use the high CRI mode.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is what I'm saying. If you're only using Sky Panel X on a product shot, only with an ARRI camera, then use this Alexa mode. Anything else, the high CRI mode is your best friend.
Thank you so much.
Yes, because also other fixtures probably are optimized to maximum CRI, and then the fixtures probably will match better.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Everybody's happy. Yes, there's a question there.
So I work with an ARRI Mini, old school. So now I understand if I use the ARRI Mini in RAW, I can get like a better result as if I have a ARRI 35.
No, the same. You get the same color quality.
So I can upgrade my camera in that way if I start shooting RAW, if I want to go in the same color.
Yes. You upgrade your image. The camera stays the same, but the ARRI RAW from the Mini...
my output, my final result.
Exactly. The only thing you have to do is when you go to post, you have to say, please process this through reveal color science. And then in their tools, Resolve, Baselight, what have you, they have a menu where they can choose which one it is. And they may be lazy, they may not know this, they may not choose to do this, so you have to tell them, please process this ARRI RAW with reveal color science, and then you automatically get better images.
Okay, so that sounds simple. So it sounds like good news to me.
It is. Well, thank you.
As I was almost having to part from my ARRI, which I like so much.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Of course, our goal is to replace all the Minis with Alexa 35s, but no. I'm sorry? Well, what happens traditionally is whenever we come out with a new camera, people want to have the new camera, and the rentals then start selling off the old cameras. The strange thing when we introduced the Alexa 35, when I went to the rentals and I talked to them, is they said, no, we think we're going to keep our Minis and our Alexa Classics, and then we're just going to sell, rent them for less money. So I think the market is really growing. But not right now, but at the time we introduced the Alexa 35, the market was growing, and it's interesting, and the used prices for ARRI cameras, including the Mini, stay really, really high, which always makes me very happy. On the one hand, when you talk to an ARRI salesperson, they're hard asses. They really like you, you might get 1% discount. If you buy 5 cameras, you might get 2% discount. Really, really tough. But that also means that the rentals can keep the rental prices constant, and it also means that the used camera prices stay high. Whereas other camera manufacturers that shall remain unnamed, the price of their camera will deteriorate over time, which makes it really hard to keep the rental prices constant, and then also the used camera prices go down. The business model of a rental is to buy a camera, rent it out for 5 years, and then sell it for as much money as possible, and then buy the next camera. If the used camera price deteriorates, they can't do this. I think this is one of the things we do that's very different from all the other companies. We look very carefully at who our customers are and how they make money. My old boss, when I used to work in the United States, Volker Bahnemann, used to tell me, it's my job to make sure you can make money. Well, the rentals, or if you want to buy a camera, that's my job. And that, in our business, we have much slower cycles, every 5 to 6 years, a new camera. We don't want to have a new camera every half year, because then our customers can't make any money and the whole thing doesn't work.
It's nice to know that my 2B has still value.
Oh, it's beautiful. Those are beautiful cameras. Yes. Yes.
So how are you dealing with the spikes in the blue with this new SkyPanel X?
It's nearly the same spike as in all other LED-based fixtures. All have a spike in the blue, which cannot be avoided. Currently, we are adding a cyan LED, which fills the gap between the blue and the green LED. That's not the case in the classic SkyPanel X, and probably also the reason why the color rendering, as well as for the human eye, as well as for the camera, is improved with a 6-color light engine. So using a 6-color light engine with a cyan LED minimizes the gap between blue and green. But you need the blue LED if you want to have a large gamut.
Okay, so the next step is even more different colors in the LEDs, more than 6, right?
Well, it gets expensive.
Yeah.
At some point, you get diminishing returns. It costs you a lot more to make these and calibrate them, but you don't get that much better of a light. So you have to very carefully think about, how much do you put in.
So the future is still hidden because of the competition, or you can tell us something?
We can't talk about it. Clearly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much for coming then. And we'll be here. We'll also be at the BSC Expo. We'll have the cameras there. Please come by and take a look at all the gear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.